Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
So I'm super excited about our guest today because the topic of canine cancer has impacted both of us.
Yes.
So we are joined today by Chan, who is the founder of the Oncotect test. So hi, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor. I'm glad that I get to talk about Oncotect and the importance and benefits of early cancer screening for dogs.
Yes, this is something we're both very passionate about.
I know, and with Canine Cancer Month, Awareness Month coming up, I guess in a few days it's starting. You know, it's interesting because I've lost 2 dogs to diagnosed cancer, and my third dog, you know, it was old age, but it was probably cancer in there as well, according to the veterinarian. It's one of those things where Erin and I are both raw feeders. We both are minimal vaccinators. We both keep the toxins down, keep the stress down. Our dogs get exercise. And so basically we feel like we're doing everything, you know, quote unquote, right. So when we still get a cancer diagnosis, it's still heartbreaking. And it's a reminder that cancer is just very prevalent in dogs nowadays. And
Sure.
You know, we shouldn't stop doing the best that we can for our dogs, but you know, it's still something that we may have to face at some time. So I'm so grateful that we can have this discussion. And my first question is, why? What made you come up with this wonderful idea?
Sure. I'll answer the question, but just kind of touch on what you just mentioned. You know, there's a lot of similarities between human medicine and veterinary medicine. Like even in human medicine, cancer is so prevalent, right? Cancer is, I think, the second leading cause of death in humans.
I'm a cancer survivor.
Well, so there's a lot of, so I'll go back to the reason why I started, you know, this company, which, you know, my mom had a breast cancer.
I'm a 5-year breast cancer survivor this year.
Breast cancer survivor too. So cancer is prevalent no matter where you look. And it doesn't mean that we should stop fighting, right? But the prevention is just so difficult. It's almost impossible because we don't know. I mean, we know certain things are causing cancer, but we don't have the clear idea of what's causing what cancer. And, you know, I'm sure you've probably heard that, you know, someone's been smoking all their life, but they don't get lung cancer. Someone doesn't smoke at all and they get lung cancer. I mean, is it causation or what's causing it? So it's the best chance of really fighting cancer is early detection, early treatment. So going back to answering your question, Kimberly, so my mom had breast cancer 6-7 years ago, and that was actually the first time any of my family members, close had cancer, and that event led me into reading a lot of cancer-related journals, scientific journals, cancer diagnostic, cancer treatment. And I came across this paper where a group of research scientists have discovered that these small nematodes called C. elegans can actually detect cancerous metabolites in human urine. And they successfully and accurately detected cancer using human urine samples. And I thought, this sounds too good to be true. And I've heard before even I read that paper, I knew about, you know, scientific paper where scientists have used dogs to detect cancer in human medicine. So I knew there was some, this relation in, you know, the cancer patients and non-cancer patients. And what it turned out was these cancer cells produce very particular smell that's different from normal cells. And scientists have used dogs to tell the difference between two. Well, we're not using dogs to detect cancer in human medicine because it's very hard to commercialize that operations because it's expensive to train dogs. They can only do so many, sniffing a day. So it's not commercially scalable platform. So what I've decided to do was, okay, if this C. elegans, these nematodes can detect cancer can detect cancerous metabolites in urine, and maybe this is a platform that we can develop. But I didn't want to go into human medicine for many obvious reasons. But back in 2019, what I've discovered was there was no cancer screening test available to companion animals. And I thought that's really shocking because cancer was and still is the leading cause of death in dogs. And I was really surprised that there was no cancer screening test. So that's when I realized I think there had to be a solution for this disease. And maybe this platform can be the solution for many, canine patients, for their pet parents. So that's how I started business back in 2019. And, 5 years forward, here we are.
So I've heard of beneficial nematodes. Some people use them in their backyard to fight fleas and, mites and things like that. So can you tell us exactly what nematodes are?
Sure. So this is a very particular nematode called C. elegans. And this is, believe it or not, this was the very first multicellular organism that was ever DNA sequenced. Because this is a model organism, this nematode worm is actually used in many different disciplines of science, in biology, chemistry, toxicology, pharmacology, stem cell research, cancer cell research, because we know everything about these worms and we can actually do a lot of experiments, run different experiments and see how they're reacting to different environments and different, stimulus. What we have discovered is that they have a very high sense of smell, olfactory receptor, that particularly responds to these cancerous volatile organic compounds that are present in urine, and they're actually attracted to them. So we have figured out a way to optimize and validate the way they migrate on a petri dish with the urine samples that we collect, and we can actually quantify their behavior, or now we are using their neuronal response. We can actually measure their neuronal activity on their head using inverted microscope, and then we can quantify their the reactiveness to urine samples that contains cancerous metabolites, and we can categorize pets as low, moderate, or high risk.
So they're worms, the nematodes, they're like little worms?
They're worms, but you can see them with your bare eyes. You have to use like microscopes to look at them. Okay. But they're microscopic nematodes.
And so they get really excited in the presence of cancer metabolites.
So we have two methods. The one method that we used to use is they migrate towards urine sample that contains cancerous metabolites. The new method that we're using is we are actually, instead of waiting for them to migrate towards urine sample, we actually measure the calcium activity of their neuronal response in their head, and we can see the spike of the neuronal response, and that's what we are using to measure their activity.
Okay. So is it any cancer or certain cancers in particular?
So we focused on 4 most common treatable canine cancers. There are about 30 plus more canine cancer types, but we didn't have resources to study all of them because first of all, it's hard to collect that many urine samples, and we just wanted to focus on the 4 most common, and there are lymphoma, melanoma, hemangiosarcoma, and mast cell tumors. So we only focus on those 4. But in the last 2 or 3 years, we have detected other cancer types like liver, TCC, bladder, prostate, soft tissue sarcoma. But the reason we are not making claims for them is because we haven't run large enough sample size to publish a scientific paper, which we plan to do this year.
And so how early can you detect cancer? Does it have to be I guess how invasive does it have to be for it to come up?
Sure. Very good question. So the samples that we have worked with on our paper, or even from collecting from local hospitals, we don't have the staging. We didn't have the staging information. We did have like low grade MCT and high grade MCT mast cell tumors, and we were able to detect both of them. But anecdotally, when scientists use the human urine samples to detect cancer in the human space, they're able to detect as early as stage 1 cancer.
So how long did it take from the time you first had this idea to get it on the market?
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
Oh man, it took maybe a good 2 years, the research and development, because I'm not a scientist. Full disclosure, I'm not a scientist. I don't have veterinary medicine background. I needed to work with, the scientists that I could find, consult with a lot of professors. And then I recruited, PhD scientists who actually got his PhD from studying C. elegans at NC State. So it took us, good 2 years from proof of concept to validation, optimization. Then we launched it with local hospitals only at first. And we did it for about 1.5 years. Then we launched the actual kit, the D2C kit last October. So about 4 months ago. And that's when we started marketing directly to pet parents, but also since we launched the kit, we've been onboarding a lot more hospitals because it makes their process much easier. So now, we have about close to 100 hospitals that we work with in the United States and internationally as well.
I know that when the pet parents get the results, so first of all, I love that it's direct to consumer, because I think not only just Kimberly and I, but everybody listening to this podcast, we're people who are really proactive about our pets' health. We want to be really involved. We want copies of all of the lab work and all the paperwork, and we want to really understand on a granular level, even though we're not veterinarians or anything, what's going on and what the changes are. And so I really like that, I can just buy it myself and test my dog's urine and get the results, and then choose which vet I want to work with or
Sure.
whatever approach that I want to do. So I really love that whole aspect of it.
So the process is, so we encourage people to, buy our tests through veterinary channels, but there are 30,000 veterinary clinics in the United States. We only have 100 hospitals we are working with. So obviously the numbers, we got a long way to go. Yeah. And then there are many pet parents just like you, Erin, that want to take this preventative, proactive approach themselves. So we made it available on D2C. And one of the things that we really thought through when we launched this product was, how can we get vets involved throughout the whole process? Because we never want to circumvent them, or, we're not, it's us versus them. It's like we are all in this together because everyone is invested in it. So let's say, Erin, if you purchase our kit online, you'll get the test, kit at your mailing address. And then during the activation process, it'll ask you to input your pet's information, obviously, but then it also asks you to put in your vet information, because we want to get them involved, in the communication. So as soon as you put in your veterinarian information, we'll proactively send them an email letting them know that, hey, one of your clients, Erin, purchased this test. And there are many veterinarians that are still not, too familiar with other tests because it's such a new product. So because we want to educate them too. Hey, this is what this product is about. This is what it does. This, and this is what you can expect. Yeah. And then you collect urine using our very convenient collection tools. And it's super easy to collect urine sample if you have the right tools on hand. And you send it back to us. And when we receive your sample, you'll get an email. Your vet will get an email. And then when the report is ready, both of you and your vet will get the report. We have two versions of reports, one for pet parent and one for veterinarians. The reason for that is the veterinarian version has more information than pet parent version. We intentionally did that because we didn't want to confuse pet parents, and we didn't want to give them too much information to confuse them or to concern them too much. Like, we want you to go back to your vet. Should there be any moderate or high risk cases, we want you to go back to your vet for further consultation or further diagnostic tests. So if it's, let's say, if it's low risk, everyone's happy. So we'll automatically send an email to you and your vet. But in case of moderate or high risk, we'll actually call the hospital first and let them know. Give them a heads up or what the result is, and then we'll email you saying, hey, the report came back, is either moderate, high, and we also provide 15-minute complimentary consultation with any pet parents, because again, we don't want to panic you, we don't want you to go down on a Google rabbit hole. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You can email us, book a call. We can talk to you, walk you through what the next step should be. But at the end of the day, we'll always encourage you to go back to your own vet because they have more information, more context. Because diagnosing a cancer is like putting a puzzle together. There's no one test that'll tell you, hey, your dog has cancer. It's just like you got to bring, different pieces of information from different, tests, and then see a big picture of what's going on. So our test is one of those early, the kind of first line of defense, if you will. Because other diagnostic tests like ultrasounds and x-rays are wonderful at diagnosing cancer, but they're just too expensive and impractical for early screening. Right. You'd be hard pressed to do annual ultrasound or x-ray for your dogs, right? Yeah. So this is before you go down on more expensive and invasive diagnostic tests. This is the first screening test you can actually use. Then decide which direction you want to go.
I mean, that's nice, because when I learned about your test, the thing that I thought of immediately with my dogs is I have a husky mix. He's a husky golden mix, and goldens have a high rate of cancer. So that's something that I would want to test him on, maybe on an annual or every couple years, just to make sure he's okay. I also have a senior dog. She's 10 years old. Sure. And so just to make sure that, how she's doing great. But you never know, you don't.
So, I mean, you're exactly right, Kimberly. So, we've been in business, we've been, selling this test over 2 years from from local hospitals to now to directly consumers and more hospitals. We have like 3 types of pet parents we've helped so far, kind of in main buckets. The first bucket is pet parents that want to do anything and everything above and beyond, proactive, preventative. Like their dog is their kid. They just want to do everything, including cancer treatment. But in order to do effective cancer treatment, you need to find out early, right? Any disease, early detection is your best strategy. The second type of pet parents we've helped is people that may not necessarily want to put their dogs through cancer treatment because their dog is older. If they don't want to put them through like invasive chemotherapy, cost. But knowing versus not knowing will give you different options. Like knowing can help you provide better quality of life for your dogs through supplements, mushrooms, CBD oils, pain management, palliative care. And there are things you can do that you can help them. Otherwise, you just don't know, and your dog is not gonna come tell you that, hey, I'm suffering from cancer, right? Yeah. So it's you as a dog parent or owner, you have to be proactive in knowing that. The third bucket of pet parents we help is people that want to get just what you said, Kimberly, want to get peace of mind because they've lost their dog to cancer before. And that by the time you find out your dog has cancer, it goes down very fast. Like you're not mentally, emotionally prepared for that event, right? So knowing that your dog getting peace of mind is also one of the big reasons why people want to do our test.
Yeah, I had a dog with mast cell cancer several years ago, but we had a really hard time kind of figuring out what was going on because it was these kind of strange symptoms that almost seemed like an allergy. And then when they did a fine needle aspiration, it was inconclusive, and it got very angry and flared up, and she had like this full body reaction from stabbing the the mass and making it aggravated. And so we were kind of like, well, is it mast cell or isn't it? Because we just didn't know. And like, this would have been like a really helpful tool, to have had.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you our test is perfect. No test is 100% perfect, right? We have our sensitivity is 83%, which is true positive, and then our specificity is 96%, which is true negative. So we do have false positives and false negatives. But again, going back, there's no test that's 100%. Even fine needle aspiration sometimes will tell you like we don't know what's going on, right? Well, ultrasound, like my mom, she did an annual mammogram every year, and right before she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she did a mammogram, and nothing was there. So it's there's no perfect test, and our test is not perfect, but there are things you can do to most likely there are things you can do to be more proactive and preventative, and doing something is better than nothing, and then and the chances of actually finding cancer is at a high is 83%. So which is better than 0%, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that what I like most about the test is not having to go to the vet. It's not so much that you won't use the vet afterwards, but I have, like what you said, where you had a dog die of cancer in the past. After that happens, you're at this heightened state where now the dogs that are still there, all of a sudden you sort of metaphorically are putting them in a bubble to try and keep them alive and keep them safe, and not having to run them back and forth to the vet because you're being, kind of paranoid and running up these extra vet bills when technically nothing is going on, but just being able to have a test that you could do at home that just gives you a little peace of mind. Is, gosh, I mean, I definitely want to test my dogs. I mean, I look at every time Zoe breathes differently. She's 10 years old. She's fine, but she breathes differently. I'm like feeling around and like looking at her gums, feeling her lymph nodes. It's like, is she okay? And I look at her gums because I've lost a dog to hemangio. I'm feeling her lymph nodes because I've lost the dog to lymphoma. Her brother, actually, I lost to lymphoma. So it's one of those where I would love to be able to, because I know that I can't just take her to the vet and say, does she have cancer? Because they're going to be like, well, what are you seeing? Because in order for them to figure out what test that they need to do, they need to know what I'm seeing. And it's all like, I don't really know. And so that's going to be, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in testing to tell me she's fine.
And normal urine analysis or the blood panels that you do at vet clinics won't tell you whether your dog has cancer or not. This, there are more tests. We do have competitors, and there are PetDx OncoK9, Volution's NuQ test. There's a breath test that's been around longer. So there are tests available, but not every hospital carries these tests. And some tests are more expensive and invasive than the others. And if normal, urine analysis or, blood panels can catch cancer, then, the cancer wouldn't be a leading cause of death in dogs, because that's done, very regularly. So these cancer screening tests are very specific design tests. And, I encourage everyone to, look into these options and what's best for them. But I can tell you our test is the only direct consumer test available in the market right now.
So have you so far, I mean, I know it's still early because you've only come out on the market, 4 months ago, but you've been with the hospitals. Have you noticed any trends that have surprised you when it comes to just the cancers that are being detected? Like, is there one that's higher than the others?
What has surprised me is really the age. So, the cancer doesn't discriminate age, right? Anyone can get it. But, just like in human medicine, kids can, children can get cancer, but we don't cancer screen children at the same frequency as, we do in adults. But, I see, a lot of young dogs that are getting cancer. Our test is generally recommended for senior dogs that are 7 years and older, or, high risk breeds like Goldens, Boxers, Irish Wolfhounds, Bernese Mountain Dogs at younger age, like 5 or 6. But I've seen even younger dogs that get cancer. So that was quite surprising to me.
And so what's the difference between like the moderate risk and the high risk? Like how concerned do you have to be when it's moderate?
Sure. For moderate risk, our suggestion is to take your dog back to your vet and ask them to do more thorough physical exam to look for other clinical signs of cancer. Moderate case so the cancerous metabolites we all have cancer cells in our body. Even if you don't have, quote unquote cancer, we have cancer cells. So it could be that, when we collect a urine sample, that it could contain that more than normal, amount of cancerous metabolites in your urine. Doesn't mean that you have cancer. So what we do is do a more thorough physical exam to look for bumps and lumps or other, signs of cancer. And if there are, then, follow with ultrasound or X-ray to confirm or deny cancer suspicion. But if you don't see anything, the dog is healthy otherwise, and there's no other signs, then repeat the test in 3 months and see where the trend, whether the trend goes. For high risk cases, our recommendation is to do follow up with ultrasound or X-ray to confirm or deny cancer suspicion, or to identify the type and location. Yeah, for high-risk cases, we are pretty certain that there's something going on, and then need to be follow up with a vet. And again, our test is a screening test. It's not a confirmatory diagnostic test. They're the two different things. So just to distinguish, so then what's a screening test and what's a diagnostic test? Yeah. So just to distinguish, the screening test is done to asymptomatic patients that are healthy otherwise. You do it as a preventative and proactive measure. Like, human medicine, we do at a certain age, we do cancer screening, PSA for men, mammogram for women, not because we think we're going to have cancer, but we just don't want to put ourselves behind the 8 ball. We want to be proactive, find out early, and then treat it quickly. Diagnostic tests are done to symptomatic patients. Like, yes, there's absolutely something going on. We need to exactly find out what's going on, where it is, and how to treat it. And that's where, ultrasound, X-rays, CT scan, MRI, those tests come in for that.
And so as the pet parent, what all do you get mailed to you in the package?
Yeah. So we, early on, we thought, man, I think people are going to have a hard time collecting urine at home, because I've spoken to many pet parents, and a lot of feedback was like, how am I supposed to collect urine? So we thought a lot about it.
I use a ladle. I have a special ladle that's specifically for it.
That's actually, a ladle is like and a lot of people actually have like a dog urine ladle specific for that. And we literally thought about it, how can we do, put like a folding ladle in the kit, but we couldn't find it. But that's one way. But our box comes with everything you need. So it has an instruction sheet that explains step by step as what you need to do, and then you can also scan QR code to watch videos on like how to collect urine samples. We have an animation, we have a real life video, and it also has a pair of gloves, a couple of paper boats to collect urine in, and then pipette to transfer, preservative collection tube to put the urine in. Also has the biohazard bag to put sample back in and use the same box, seal it. Every kit comes with prepaid return labels. So we pay for shipping both ways. So all you need to do is at that point is just put in your mailbox for United States Postal Service to pick up, and your job is done. And surprisingly, we've have maybe 1 or 2 people reach out to us saying they're like having a hard time collecting urine. But I mean, I would say 98% of pet parents, we haven't heard any complaints or any issues. And if they really have a hard time collecting urine, they just take it to their vet and they can help them.
So is this, like, is it best to do the urine first thing in the morning, or is there like a time of day?
Sure. The first thing in the morning is preferred, but we don't specify which urine that need to be collected. Okay. It doesn't need, your dog, it doesn't need fasting, doesn't need require, the cysto. It can be free catch. We just ask that you keep it as fresh and not contaminated as possible. And once urine is collected into a collection tube, the preservative tube, try to definitely mail it or put it in a mailbox on the same day or the next day, so it can be picked up right away and then can be shipped to us as soon as possible.
And approximately how long does it take to get the results back?
Sure, it takes up to 5 business days from the time we receive sample.
That's quick.
Wow. Yeah, that is quick. I was expecting, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks, because the thing that I think about is what is it, like dog DNA tests?
Sure, yeah. Do they take that long?
Sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Usually by the time I get the results, I've kind of forgotten.
Sure.
Where it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that we try to do is, when people are concerned about their dog's health and want to find out what's going on, like in 2 weeks is a long time, right? Yeah. Like DNA testing, people do it for fun, right? But for health concerns like cancer, like by the time you find out your dog has cancer, I mean, sometimes put their dog down next day or less than a week, right? So we took it seriously, and the lead time, shortening the lead time is our priority.
Yeah, I like that.
And does it give you any information on like that it could be lymphoma or anything like that, or is it just like high risk of some kind of cancer?
Sure. So no screening tests in the market will tell you specifically what it is. All they do is tell you the risk level. Some other tests can tell you positive or negative. Our test shows moderate, low, moderate, high risk. Some other tests will give you probability, but not specifically what it could be.
Okay. And how often should you repeat it, or could it be repeated to be useful?
Sure. Our recommendation is to do it every 12 months for normal breeds. But if you have older dogs or high-risk breeds, do that every 3 to 6 months, depending on the condition.
I know. I love this. I'm looking at Zoe. It's like, you're going to get tested.
Are there tests like this for people?
Like using the same technology, or not in the United States? Not in the United States. Oh, there's a company that does similar things that we are in human medicine in Japan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so this is just for dogs right now?
Just for dogs. Great question. Just for dogs right now. But we do have plans to start developing a test for cats later this year.
Nice.
And as you know, collecting, feline urine samples is a lot more challenging than canines. But I think there's a lot more use cases for cats because, I mean, they are notorious for not going to vet visits, right? They just hate going to the vet. So if you can figure out a way to, collect urine at home, right, and then do this cancer screening, because cats do get cancer as well. So if you can figure out a logistical, way to collect urine at home for cats and then develop a test for it, I think that could be also a very useful resource for, pet parents and veterinarians.
So you mentioned you guys are going to be putting out a paper this year. What exactly is that going to cover?
So the new paper will cover the new method that we have developed that we are currently validating and optimizing. And the second paper may not come out later this year or next year, but the second paper will include more cancer types, like other cancer types that I've mentioned earlier, beyond the most common 4 cancer types we've studied. What other cancer types can it also detect?
Now, what about a situation where there's UTIs or bladder stones or something like that? Could anything like that affect the outcome?
So we've tested dogs with other diseases like UTI, diabetes, kidney. We haven't run large enough sample size to really see if some of these diseases how they're affecting our results. But so far, they haven't affected our results. So we are actually collecting urine samples with Auburn University, their College of Veterinary Medicine, with non-cancer diseases and see how they're affecting our results.
Do the nematodes respond to them?
So far, no, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very specifically responding to cancerous metabolites.
Okay, this is interesting.
So, are you a dog dad?
I don't have a dog right now. I have 3 young kids. But I had a dog growing up when I was a kid.
I was just thinking, people always ask me if I have kids, and I say, no, I have dogs.
No, I don't have dogs. I have 3 kids.
Well, see, I'm so happy to hear that, because I'm of the opinion I don't see how people do it with dogs and kids. It's just so much going on.
Well, we were very close to getting a dog, and we had to abandon that idea at the last minute because my youngest was, I think, 2 years old when we were considering it. And looking back, I think we made the right decision because we're probably gonna wait till my youngest turns 5 or 6 when he's more self-managed and self-sufficient.
Yeah. I mean, because I get up in the morning and my day, and I work from home, so I'm very lucky since I work from home, but I am constantly moving. I mean,
Sure.
It's not, to me, it's like having dogs is so much easier than having kids. I mean, the closest I got to kids is I have a stepson. And so he was 8 when he became my stepson. So he was self-sufficient and not, sit him in front of a TV or a video game and he was good to go. Because I was that parent.
The dogs you can just put in a crate.
I know. And it's like with dogs, it's like they, right now I'm impressed. I got up this morning, I took them for a long walk because I was just like, I need you guys to be quiet for at least an hour. But they're pretty easy to manage, but it's still a lot to do with dogs. Yeah. But then to add that on, my brother has 5 kids. And so everyone's involved. Yeah, everyone's
God bless him.
Sports, everyone's involved in all these type of things. And it's just sort of like, he would love to have a dog, but he does not have time because they're constantly going with the kids.
I mean, speaking of dogs and kids, I mean, there are more dogs than children, I think, right? Or they're,
Well, and if it's not the case, it's on its way to being that way.
Yeah. And then people are spending more money on their dogs than kids.
Yeah, I read an article recently. That's what people think of when they buy a house. I mean, when we bought the house that we're in now, that was a big part of it. We had 2 dogs, and so we wanted property so they can run around. The fact that the person already had a yard fenced on the property for dogs because she was a dog owner, that was a big deal for us. And everything that we do for our home, the furniture we buy, the car that I bought 7 years ago, but the car, every choice that we make, it's sort of like,
No, and I think what we're on to the really good topic because there's a lot of, humanization happening in pet care, right? From pet food to, pet care. So, even in, pet care, things that we didn't think that we needed to do for our pets are done. And, now I think the really last frontier is, cancer screening.
Yeah.
Because again, cancer is the leading cause of death in dogs. And every year, 6 to 10 million dogs get diagnosed with cancer. And, 1 in 3 dogs will develop cancer in their lifetime. So these statistics are pretty incredible numbers, but nothing's really been done to curb that. Yeah. And really the best way to curb that number is to get it screened early, find out early, and then get it treated. And we've had many cases where, vet couldn't figure out what was going on with the dog after doing normal, urine tests or blood tests. And then they ran our tests and came back positive. So the vet did the further diagnostic test and found mast cell tumors. And all these cancers like that I'm talking about, like lymphoma, melanoma, hemangiosarcoma, mast cell tumors, are actually treatable. You can actually treat them if you find them early enough. Surgically remove them, and there's ways that you can prolong their lives through, supplements, mushrooms, CBD. So you have options. People do have options. They just need to find out early. And otherwise, they don't have those options. The only option that they have is to euthanize.
Yeah. I know that there is also a vaccine now for, have you looked into that, and have you correlated your product with that product?
I know there are companies out there that do like cancer vaccines. We don't work with them and we don't partner with them particularly. So we don't have any collaborations with them. But I do know, those companies you're referring to. Yeah. But we don't work with them in any particular way.
I mean, I just find it fascinating that it's kind of cool that all of this is coming out now. And I think it's, in response to the fact that dogs have become so important to us.
Sure. And it's really interesting. When I started our company back in 2019, there was no cancer screening test. And all of a sudden in early 2022, we came to market and everyone else came to market too. So I was like, this is really strange, But that also comes with a lot of challenges in that pet parents just don't know that there's the cancer screening tool that's available, because for so long it wasn't, and now it is. And so the product education and awareness building is really not the industry's biggest challenge, not just certainly our biggest challenge, but it's the industry's biggest challenge, because people just don't know that this is even possible, that this is something that they need to do. So that's why I'm, talking to you guys about, kind of spreading, the word of, the different tools that are available to them so that they can be more proactive and preventative. But that is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you have a dog that has cancer and you're treating them for the cancer, is there any usefulness in retesting with your kit to see is it working? Would that bring their level down? Is your treatment working, or sure. Are they in remission kind of thing?
Sure.
No cancer detected thing.
Great question. So our test has been used as a monitoring tool after surgical removal of splenic mass or mast cell tumors, probably 2 or 3 months post-op. And then we actually, doctors were able to use that data to say, hey, the dog is, now it's in remission, is doing well. I don't have any data on chemotherapy or any kind of vaccine or medication, but for surgical removal of certain mass, we are able to use. The vets were able to use it as our test as a monitoring tool.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting.
I didn't even think about that. Good question. Gosh, it just has so many practical uses that it's going to really save, I think. Because I just think about the fact that, making adjustments to the diet, using a lot of the foods that you mentioned, the mushrooms, even golden paste, CBD oil, all of these type of things that we can do, being able to use that, and also your product just again, for peace of mind. That's basically what I'm looking for, is just peace of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, this has been wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It's a great honor, and thanks for allowing me to share our story with your audience. And our goal, our mission, we pride ourselves as the most accessible, convenient, affordable cancer screening test in the market. And we really want to help dog owners, potentially cat owners, to really have take care of their pets in a way that they deserve. And these days they think of their pets as their extension of their family. So if anything we can do to help them to enjoy their moments with their pets is that's our mission.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
and I thank you for, allowing me to, share that with your people, with your audience.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kimberly.